How to manage money. Here's something nobody tells you. The reason most people are broke isn't income. It's that nobody ever explained what money actually does when you're not paying attention to it. You spend a little here, subscribe to a thing there, grab food because cooking takes time. None of it feels significant. Then you check your account and somehow a decent paycheck turned into $100 2 weeks before the next one. That's not bad luck. That's a system working exactly as designed, and you're not the one running it. The actual skill isn't earning more. It's knowing where every dollar is going before it leaves. Budget isn't a dirty word. It's just a decision made in advance instead of a regret made after. The people who seem effortlessly good with money aren't wealthier than you. They just stop being surprised. Here's the trap, though. Every subscription service, every buy now, pay later button, every credit card minimum payment was engineered by someone who spent millions figuring out how to extract money from people who aren't paying attention. Financial literacy is not optional. It's the only thing standing between you and funding a stranger's boat. How to pay taxes. You will earn money your entire life, and the government will take a cut of it your entire life. And at no point during your schooling did anyone sit down and explain how any of that works. The basic structure is not complicated. You earn money, the tax rate goes up as you earn more. But here's what trips everyone up. A higher tax bracket doesn't mean all your money gets taxed at that rate. Only the portion above the threshold does. Half the panic people feel about earning more comes from misunderstanding this. What you can control is more than people think. Deductions are legal. Offsets are legal. Structuring your income properly is legal. The people paying the least tax relative to what they earn aren't cheating. They just hired someone who actually understood the rules. That's the messed up part. The tax code is public information. It's equally available to everyone. The people who benefit from it most are just the ones who bothered to learn it or paid someone who had. How to negotiate. Every single time you accepted a price without questioning it, you probably overpaid. The first number anyone gives you is almost never their real number. It's the number they'd like you to believe is real. This applies to salaries, rent, car prices, freelance rates, and your phone plan. Negotiation feels rude because you were raised to be polite, and politeness was very conveniently reframed as accepting whatever you were offered. The person on the other side of that table did not make the same mistake. Here's the thing. Negotiation is not aggression. You're not fighting anyone. You're just having a conversation about numbers, and both parties know the first number isn't final. The discomfort you feel is exactly what the other side is counting on. Your discomfort is their margin. The simplest move, say your number and then go quiet. Most people can't handle the silence. They walk their own offer back before the other person has said anything. Stop doing that. Silence is not awkward. Silence is leverage. Sleep, exercise, and nutrition fundamentals. You will spend roughly a third of your life asleep, every waking hour inside a body, and 3 meals a day for 80-odd years making food decisions. Nobody handed you an instruction manual for any of it. Sleep isn't downtime. Your brain uses it to consolidate memory, flush metabolic waste, and regulate every hormone that controls your mood, appetite, and stress response. Cut it short consistently, and everything gets worse. Energy, focus, emotional regulation, physical recovery. And the cruel part, poor sleep impairs your ability to notice how impaired you are. You genuinely can't tell. Exercise doesn't need to be complicated. Muscle responds to load. Your cardiovascular system responds to sustained effort. The specific program matters far less than the consistency. The person who walks 4 times a week for 10 years will outperform the person who goes hard for 3 months and quits. Nutrition has been made intentionally confusing by industries that profit from confusion. The actual framework is about 200 words and hasn't changed. Mostly whole foods, enough protein, not too many calories, vegetables. That's it. Everything beyond that is optimization, and optimization only matters once the basics are locked in. Mental health literacy. 1 in 5 people will have a diagnosable mental health condition in any given year. You either are one of them right now, or you're close to someone who is. This isn't rare. It's just not talked about until it gets bad enough that it can't be ignored. Anxiety is not just stress. Depression is not just sadness. ADHD is not a personality flaw. These are specific neurological patterns with specific mechanisms, and confusing them with character weaknesses is why people spend years suffering through things that actually respond to treatment. Here's the messed up part. Most mental health conditions get significantly better with the right help. The reason people don't get better isn't that the tools don't exist. It's that they waited 6 years on average before asking for help, because somewhere along the way they decided they should be able to handle it themselves. You wouldn't diagnose a broken leg as laziness and decide to push through. The logic is identical. The stigma is the only thing that makes it feel different. How to cook. 3 meals a day, every day, for your entire life. That's the rough math, and the education system decided that none of it was worth covering. Cooking is one of the highest leverage skills that exists. It costs less than eating out. It's almost always better for you. It makes you less dependent on companies whose nutritional priorities are not yours. And it's a skill, which means you actually get better at it instead of just spending more. Here's what trips people up. They think learning to cook means learning recipes. It doesn't. It means learning techniques, heat control, seasoning, building flavor. Someone who understands those 3 things can make something edible out of almost any ingredients. Someone who only knows recipes is one missing item away from defeat. The most underrated thing you can learn: how to season properly. Most home cooking that tastes flat isn't undercooked or low quality. It's just underseasoned at the wrong stage. That's it. Fix that one thing and food immediately gets better. The rest follows. How to learn effectively. Here's the uncomfortable truth about how you studied. Most of it didn't work. Not because you were lazy, because the methods felt productive while producing almost nothing. Rereading your notes feels like learning. Highlighting feels like learning. Watching a lecture a second time feels like learning. What they actually produce is familiarity, and familiarity is not knowledge. Familiarity is why you go into a test feeling prepared and come out confused. What actually works is retrieval, closing the book and forcing yourself to recall what was in it, testing yourself before you feel ready, spacing it out over days instead of cramming it the night before. These methods feel harder, that's the point. The difficulty is the mechanism. Your brain consolidates information in response to the effort of pulling it back out, not the number of times you've passively read it. That's the trap of easy studying. It feels productive in the moment. It feels productive right up until the moment it doesn't. How to communicate clearly. Most relationship problems, most workplace problems, most conflicts that drag on for weeks longer than they needed to. They're not personality problems, they're precision problems. When you say, "Can you get this to me soon?" you mean Friday. They hear whenever. Nobody lied. Nobody was difficult. The communication just wasn't specific enough to transfer the actual information. This happens constantly, and people blame each other for it. Here's the thing. Being direct doesn't mean being rude. It means being specific. "I need this by Thursday at noon" is not aggressive. It's considerate because it removes ambiguity and gives the other person an actual target. Vague communication feels softer and creates more problems than it avoids. The other half is listening. Most people aren't listening during a conversation. They're loading their response while the other person is still talking. You miss information that way. Usually the exact information that would have changed what you were about to say. How to handle conflict. Avoiding conflict and resolving conflict feel identical in the short term. Long term, they're completely different outcomes. Most people do one of 2 things. They avoid the situation entirely until it becomes intolerable, and by then, it's 3 problems dressed up as one. Or they go in emotionally activated and say things that shift the conversation from the actual issue to defending character. Neither approach resolves anything. One delays, one escalates. Here's what actually works. Separate the problem from the person. You can have a strong disagreement about a decision without making it a verdict on someone's character. The moment it becomes personal, they stop hearing the substance. You've now created 2 fires from one. The most useful question before any difficult conversation: what outcome do I actually want? Most people go in knowing what upset them, but having no idea what resolution looks like. Without a destination, the conversation just circles. Know the destination first, then you have somewhere to go. How to spot scams and manipulation. The reason scams work is not that people are stupid, it's that people believe they're too smart to be scammed. That belief is the opening. Every effective scam is built around one of three pressure points: urgency, so you don't have time to think; authority, so you don't question the source; social proof, so you assume other people already vetted it. None of these target your logic. All of them target your nervous system. Here's the tell. Legitimate opportunities don't require you to decide in the next 10 minutes. Legitimate organizations don't discourage you from calling them back on a number you looked up yourself. Legitimate investments don't need to be explained in a way that prevents you from understanding them. The pressure is the signal. Anytime someone is pushing you to move fast and discouraging you from talking to anyone else, stop completely. That pressure exists because slowing down is the one thing that breaks the entire mechanism. So slow down. How to make decisions under pressure. The decisions with the highest stakes are almost always made when your judgment is at its worst. That's not bad luck. Pressure is the reason the stakes are high, and pressure is also what degrades the thinking. When cortisol spikes, your brain narrows attention to the immediate problem, discounts anything that isn't right in front of you, and defaults to whatever pattern it used last time. None of those are good conditions for a good decision. But that's the mode you're running in when it matters most. The people who consistently make good decisions under pressure aren't calmer than you. They made the decision before the pressure arrived. If X happens, I do Y. Pre-commitment. Pilots don't improvise emergencies. Surgeons don't invent protocols mid-procedure. The system exists because the moment the stress hits is exactly when you don't want to be figuring it out from scratch. For everything else, slow down. Not forever. Long enough to ask what you're assuming, what you're missing, and what you'd tell a friend to do. That third question is the most useful one you have. Your advice to others is almost always less distorted than your decisions for yourself. Dopamine literacy. Here's why you can scroll for 2 hours but can't sit at a desk for 20 minutes. It's not discipline. It's not character. It's that one of those activities was engineered by a team of PhD-level behavioral scientists specifically to make you keep doing it, and the other one wasn't. Dopamine is not the pleasure chemical. That's the thing almost everyone gets wrong. Dopamine is the anticipation chemical. It spikes before the reward, not during. That's why the scrolling doesn't stop when you find something good. The spike already happened. Your brain wants the next anticipation, not the current satisfaction. Every major social platform was built around this. Variable rewards, unpredictable timing, infinite supply. The mechanism is identical to a slot machine, and it's not an accident. They knew exactly what they were building. The result is an environment your brain treats as infinitely more stimulating than almost anything real life can offer, including your goals. Here's the part that actually matters. When you've been running high stimulation inputs all day, low stimulation inputs stop registering. Difficult work feels physically aversive. Not metaphorically. Your brain has recalibrated its baseline, and now sustained focus sits below the threshold of what feels worth doing. That's the trap. The phone doesn't just waste time. It makes everything else harder by comparison. So how do you deal with it? Lower the inputs before you need to perform. Protect the morning. Create friction between yourself and the slot machine. And understand that what you call motivation is mostly just neurochemistry that you can actually influence. The work starts to feel possible again once you stop competing with something designed to be more compelling than everything else. The system isn't broken. It's just pointed at the wrong targets. You can point it at the right ones. Most people just never try.